this past week, the Biden administration dropped a new Title IX rule. It was the Department of Education that did this. Title IX is, of course, governing parity, if you will, between men and women in education. So the Biden Department of Education, let me just tell you what they did. They dropped a new Title IX rule that essentially prohibits schools across the country from who receive federal funding, which all schools do, right? If they enforce statewide laws that prohibit biological boys. I know that's redundant, but because we are comparing biological boys to those who identify as girls, that ban biological boys from entering a girls' locker room or playing on a girls' sports team. So the Biden Department of Education said, listen, schools, if you receive federal taxpayer dollars here, we are issuing a new rule, a new interpretation of a rule that says that if you don't allow men who identify as women to play on women's sports teams, then you're going to lose that federal funding. When I saw this, I thought to myself, you know what? I actually kind of respect that. I don't like how our system works. I don't like the administrative state. I don't like that it's essentially technocracy. I don't like that these bureaucrats who are unelected, unaccountable to us, and virtually unfireable have the power to just, quote unquote, reinterpret a rule in order to force their partisan political agenda on states who have passed laws around the nation. I don't like that. I hate that. I want to abolish the administrative state so they have no power. But while they do have the power, why is it that only Democrats use that power? Why is it that Republicans sit back and because we'd rather the administrative state doesn't exist, we refuse to take part in it when we could have done the same thing? Why is it that Republicans, when we were in power, did not say, you know what? Every hospital in the entire United States that touches a dime of Medicare or Medicaid money, which is federal money, is going to lose every last cent of that if they prescribe puberty-blocking pharmaceuticals to children suffering from gender disorders, if they prescribe cross-sex hormone therapy in the name of gender identity, and if they perform any kind of transgender surgeries. You're going to lose all of it, every dime of Medicare and Medicaid. Do you know what would have happened if hospitals were threatened with losing Medicare and Medicaid if they continued to perform transgender surgeries and prescribe transgender hormones? They would have stopped prescribing transgender hormones and performing transgender surgeries because they rely on Medicare and Medicaid. And all it would have taken is a Republican administration to do that. The same with abortion. Medicare, Medicaid. They essentially fund hospitals. Hospitals can't do without them. And if a Republican administration said, you know what, if you perform abortions, then we are not going to give you $1 of federal money, then most hospitals would have stopped doing that. And so I kind of respect what the Biden administration has done here. They are here to win the fight. That's the thing about the left. They fight. They're savage. They want to win. They will analyze the process and use every tiny iota of power that they've been given in politics as elected officials, as bureaucrats, to exact their political agenda. Now, like I said, it doesn't mean that I like the administrative state. It doesn't mean I like the Department of Education. I think we should abolish the Department of Education. I think we should abolish the administrative state. I don't like that our legislature at the federal level has essentially given away their legislative powers. I don't like that they craft these vague bills that require clarification by executive agencies to implement and execute these laws. I think that's bonkers. I don't like that our judicial system allows the U.S. Congress to delegate their legislative authority to the executive branch. I think it's a violation of the separation of powers doctrine. I don't like any of that. But while it exists, if the left takes advantage of it and we don't, we're just going to lose time and time again. Time and time again. It's like ballot harvesting. We talk about this ballot harvesting apparatus that the left has built. We talk about the fact that they essentially use election season, not just election day, to win elections. And we don't like that. We want voting day to be one day. We want people to vote in person on paper ballots at the polls. But if we act like that's the rule because we want it to be the rule, and we neglect to target voters, invite them to vote, engage in ballot harvesting, do early voting months in advance, if we neglect to do that because we prefer it doesn't exist, we are going to continue to lose. Republicans must understand the battle that we're fighting. This is not just a disagreement over certain policy issues with political opponents that share our fundamental values. This is an existential fight for our republic. And if we don't utilize all the tools that we have to win this fight, then we're going to lose. Our country is on the verge of revolution. Riley Gaines, the swimmer from the University of Kentucky who was deprived of a championship because of Leah Thomas, formerly Will Thomas, the man who swam for 3 years at the University of Pennsylvania as a man and then quote unquote transitioned to a woman and just obliterated the women's competition and won all kinds of NCAA titles. Riley Gaines has been speaking out against men in women's sports because she was personally hurt by it and because all women and all men should speak out against this. When she was at the San Francisco State University talking about this, she was forced to hide in a classroom for 3 hours because radical transgender activists not only barged in on her event, but physically assaulted her. Physically assaulted her. She posted a video, and I want you to take a look at it. This is element number 4, Matt. Okay, so what you're seeing right now, I'm gonna narrate this because it's not perfectly clear. She has her phone out while she's being escorted away from the podium, escorted away from the violence. This is security and police trying to get her to safety. And look at what these transgender activists have done to her. Because they want men who claim to identify as women to be treated as real women, to be allowed in women's sports. A man dressed in a dress hit her, physically assaulted her. This is the transgender ideology. The transgender ideology is the outgrowth of queer theory. Queer theory teaches transgenderism for a reason. Can you imagine if this was your daughter or your wife or your sister? You saw those activists. Those activists were enraged. They were essentially frothing at the mouth. And why is that? Why is it that they care so much about a biological man playing on a women's sports team? Why are they so enraged about this? They're enraged about this because they're fearful. Hi guys, it's Liz Wheeler. Don't forget to watch my show, The Liz Wheeler Show, every night at 7 p.m. on the First TV. You can download the free First TV app, or you can visit thefirsttv.com/Liz and start watching today.